Welcome, A Slight Tangent is coming at you. The crew have assembled. Will O'Callaghan is to my right. Hello, Will.
Evening, lads.
We have Michael McCarthy to my left. Hello, Michael.
Hello again.
Arthur O'D also in the house. Hello.
Hi, Joe.
In the house.
What is A Slight Tangent, I hear you ask? It's where the OTB FM PM team get together and chew the fat, I suppose. Emails aplenty coming into aslighttangent@offtheball.com. Do get involved. Or whatever issue is catching our eye. So that is the plan. We have lots to get through, so I'll proceed. Our first email concerns Arthur O'D.
In the subject.
Yeah.
Great.
Surefire way to get us to stop and read that one. Hi, Joe and crew. I'm back again. This is John from Leitrim in Galway, who is self-confessed whinger in the past.
He is?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Remember? He was whinging about...
Lack of Connacht coverage.
Yes.
Yes, but that's not what he emailed us about. He emailed us about asking us, do we know more than we let on sometimes about certain stories.
Real crank.
Certain stories, do you know more than you can say? What's that like? We had a good discussion.
Offensive.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on.
Well, it's ironic. It's a good discussion he prompted us to have last week. But anyway, I'm back again. Thanks for reading out my email last week. It was useful to hear my words read out loud. It exposes how overly verbose my writing can be. Again, I just think, John, you could have just gone with verbose. It's not for me to say.
Yeah, you're either verbose or not. You're not overly.
Mr. O'D left me under no illusions on this score. I saw the man yawn his head off on the bottom right of my screen as Joe entered my second paragraph. I'm a theatre maker by trade, and I've received my fair share of bad reviews over the years, but none have quite matched Arthur's in its brutal, ferocious pithiness. Mr. O'D, stay in the sports world. We couldn't survive such flame-throwing in the arts. Regards, John from Leitrim in Galway.
That was a well-written email.
Very well. Didn't yawn during that one?
No, I don't know what to say.
I want to send Arthur to the Galway Arts Festival this summer and have him sit during one of his plays.
Yeah. I would read your theatre reviews.
Oh, I'd say Arthur would be very interesting theatre reviewer.
Akin to Fintan O'Toole, you could be dab hand at doing arts on the side.
I wouldn't like this. I have no interest, to be honest with you now, in saying anything negative about people's work. It's too personal.
What about John?
You just assumed that John's play is going to be negative. It might be good.
No, but I've not seen John. Like I don't know. I don't know. I don't know John.
Your sense is John's not good though.
Like you've seen his writing.
Well, I've heard it.
Overly verbose.
But that's always strikes me as really harsh. Wouldn't like to live like that.
Do you enjoy a negative review?
Not so much. Unless it's something I really dislike.
Honestly, I love
then
it.
I'll enjoy it.
I rub my hands and tuck into this.
But it's like that thing, isn't it? It's like when you hear, even if when a team you dislike loses and you really start lapping up all the podcasts. It's like after England lose the Euros final or something.
Yeah, that's
I'm listening to podcasts I'd never listen to. It's just, I got to hear what they're going to say about it.
You're not afraid to be negative about sport though?
No, but that's impersonal. It's like you're not going to be, so it's something someone creates. It's a lot more personal. It's a lot more, you'd really want to be pretty on some pretty sure footing before doing something like that, because it's not, there's no, like, you only think from your own perspective, like, if you hear something like that, it'd be terrible. It would really stick with you.
It's an interesting idea. Do you lap up those negative reviews, say?
Wow.
But I imagine a lot of people do. I'd say when somebody, like, I'd say the first few times a reviewer does it, there's an element of like having the balls to tell it like it is, and they get a lot of good reaction for that. And you wonder then, does that slip into, this is my motif now, and this is how I get the, whatever the equivalent of the clicks is, this is how I get the kudos, I suppose. Like I would, and then you're a little bit too mean.
Yes.
Over time, and it becomes a sort of a...
It can depend who the target is. Like there was a deliciously vicious review of Gabor Mate, the trauma doctor, and his fireside chat with Prince Harry.
Oh, okay, I didn't see that.
You have a real growl for Prince Harry, don't you?
No, I'm really
interested.
Yeah, I have an interest. Yeah, I find it interesting. So I read that review and it was like laugh out loud funny at times. But then subsequently I saw Gabor Mate interviewed in the Irish Times this week.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how devastating that review was on his psychology for the subsequent weeks.
Yeah.
I had to go and see a therapist about it. And then I didn't feel as good. But,
Can you imagine that? Like it is there. Yeah. Where was the review?
The Guardian, I think.
Okay.
But to be fair, it just tore the whole silliness of the architecture around Prince Harry to pieces. And it was a bit... dismissive of Gabor Mate, I thought. And he said that's what he found most insulting, is that it was just, it took a media construct of him and tossed it aside, as opposed to showing a certain respect for him and his work.
He is highly respected. I don't know
Yeah.
much. I've not read him now, but I know some people who have.
I can't shake this image now of Joe on the Malloy estate on a Sunday evening now with his coffee and every single pull-out magazine from the Sunday
Brandy,
papers and
surely.
working through it. Well, brandy maybe that hour, yeah.
Cackling.
Slowly but surely cackling his way through each review.
No.
What have they got to say about the latest books in the Times this weekend?
No. But I take your point on, I wouldn't like to be the one dishing out the review.
Well, like, you're the most front-facing of anyone here. I mean, publicity-wise, of people who'll be seen.
Mm-hmm.
But do you ever get any... Like, have you ever seen... I suppose you'll presumably see the people who write negative things, like, say, in the heat of Twitter, like, but like, I imagine that must be the most brutal aspect of it.
Yeah.
Like, because it's just... You can't unsee it, like, no matter how frivolous it is, like, or whoever the person is, but I wouldn't want to do that, and especially from no point of authority. It's not...
Or even authority. I've had it both ways.
Yeah.
It's not pleasant. And if you're inclined to be anyway self-critical, which I think most of us are, myself included, even if you want to ignore the comment, there is a part of your brain going, they have a point though.
Yeah.
Could be right about that. So it can send you down a spiral. Not easy.
I'm not going to John's play for that reason.
Fair enough. Will we move on?
John's play.
Sport.
John, send me 2 tickets.
We'll move on. John, that's 2 emails in a row we've read out for you. As we're going to do for John in Cork very briefly, John in Cork wrote in last week bemoaning GAA as a spectacle. This was before Monaghan Tyrone. He has promptly sent a short email just to say, needless to say, John in Cork, my email to the show last week on Gaelic football as a spectacle has aged rather poorly. Laughing face. I take it all back.
It was a pretty good game on Sunday.
Yeah, but did it save Gaelic football?
Gaelic football
Does
needs
Gaelic
saving.
football need saving?
Oh.
Yeah, there we go.
15 matches this week is a better sample size. Like, I don't
Yeah,
think
well,
Derry
10
Fermanagh.
football games.
Derry Fermanagh didn't set anyone's hair on fire.
A lot of goals. I mean, for what it was.
Okay. Paddy Andrews on the football pod was talking about how he was losing the will to live and that Tyrone Monaghan saved this weekend.
One-sided game as well. Like, you can't really do too much with that. Like, there's always going to be teams that are, and obviously they're trying to maybe come up with a system that lessens that a little bit. But there's going to be teams that are much better than others. I don't know. I have to say I was quite negative about it. And I actually thought your points last week, if you were more nuanced than mine, I would say. But I watched Tyrone and Monaghan on Sunday and was thinking to myself, this is a great game in a sport that I enjoy, and I was unfair on it last week. And I think it's okay to say that. I thought that I was unfair. I do have a problem with some of the more negative, and it's not necessarily about the defending, it's about what the attacking team is trying to do against the defence. Whereas if you look at what Monaghan and Tyrone were doing, again, the defence possibly lent itself to this, but they were penetrating at all points. They weren't hanging around waiting for openings. They were trying to get inside. They were trying to get past that line, and it made for a really exciting game.
Yeah.
And brilliant. That's the way we want it played. We want lads going for goals instead of fisting points. There's loads of things that could be better about football and the way it's played, and it was illustrated on Sunday, but it's probably unfair to say that that's how the game is always going to be, but it's also unfair to pick the bad game and say it's gone to the dogs because of this.
True.
Yeah.
Okay. Arthur, you wanted to touch on the Arsenal video, which has gone viral. If people haven't seen this video, I think we all have at this stage. You've seen it, Will?
You must have. I'm interested to know what the number is at now.
Michael,
It was a few million
5.
earlier today. Yeah.
Oh, is it that many?
Oh, I
Okay.
saw it at 5.
So I think the Arsenal social media people thought that they were capturing a lovely moment of what they thought was connection between team and fan.
Yeah.
I
And
think they were thinking we've got a clip that's going to get lots of engagement.
oh, really? You think they knew it wasn't good?
No, not that they didn't know it was good. I think they saw, here's a young supporter of Arsenal, here are the players walking by. Nobody's going to pay any great attention to this. They're going to say it's great that the players have stopped and signed their shirt.
Oh, yeah, okay.
What a nice little moment. Loads of retweets and likes.
Sorry, I thought when you meant engagement, you meant that it would be discussed the way it has been.
No. I don't
couldn't
think they would
have.
want
Yeah.
to put out deliberately poor content. I don't think that was the intention.
So what happens is that a 10-year-old, and she turns out to be the mascot as well on the day, is holding a jersey with, I'm presuming, her father, but they're holding a jersey and the players are invited to sign it as they go by. And there's zero eye contact, there's zero interaction. They treat her as if she's a staff member and they're having to sign this for some kind of charity. And needless to say, many people took to Twitter. Everybody from Arthur O'D to Piers Morgan thought,
But don't do that.
But
to
they're
me.
the two people I've seen
Yeah,
most
yeah, yeah.
vociferous.
Pierce Morgan had a much smaller impact on it going viral than Arthur, but
Indeed.
besides-
10.2 million on Twitter. I presume it's on other platforms too.
It's even
Ouch.
exploded more today then.
The point was, would one of you not acknowledge that this is a 10-year-old girl as opposed to a staff member getting you to sign a jersey? So they just came along and they all signed it. I mean, they did
She
their
looks
duty.
happy enough to me, I have to say.
She's watching
I think
one
this
Arsenal
is,
star
I think
after
this is
another.
a bit overblown.
Did you not think it said something of the players?
I kind of feel like they have to do this stuff all the time, and they're going into the dressing room, they're off the bus. I'd imagine it's just like duty and they don't think too much about it. Like they are about to play a match. I don't know. Zinchenko gives her a nice little smile after he finishes there.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, just he's kind of almost out of shot.
Arsenal have
He wasn't playing though. That's why. You
Arsenal
see,
have
it's all about focus.
brief to say that, Odegaard did chat
Fabian
to her.
Vieira took ages doing it. He doesn't seem to know how
Odegaard
to
did
write
chat
his
to
name.
her at another point.
Yeah,
Okay.
they put out a video earlier, yeah.
Yeah,
where
so
he was
they've
kind of
been
just
scrambling to show.
They're scrambling and putting out extra videos.
Did anyone look at the girl? Is there any eye contact we can muscle up and throw
Oh
in?
my god.
So, what do you want to say, Arthur?
No, it's not. There's no great point to it. It's just it's.
All right, we'll take a break.
It's no, it's not. It's just a case of it's so maddening what those kind of club accounts do. Like it's just so transparent, and it obviously works. And they all, well, I don't know. It's a little bit like we were talking about Gaelic football. Do they all do it because they see one or two doing it, and it's just a case that we have to be doing this, or is it a case where there are manifest gains from just putting out the most and like useless kind of, not useless, like, but just the most meaningless thing. It's like an internal work, like whatever.
Careful.
But like a database with all the things. Like, oh, what was like the one that just stuck with me is like, was it something about celebrating a happy St Andrew's Day? And it's just a picture of Scott McTominay. Wasn't even born in Scotland. He just plays with him.
No.
Surely
I'm not
he's
the
on
question
first
is
there.
Scottish.
I'm not
St.
saying, but he
Andrew's
didn't
Day.
grow up celebrating St Andrew's Day, is my point.
No.
But it's just like, what's that?
Yes.
I'm just on the Arsenal one here randomly because I was looking at the video, and it's so funny because they've got two birthday messages, and basically for like two goalkeepers that are like the same guy. So they have a picture of Fabianski, and it's like happy birthday Lucas, and two pictures of him, and then right above it an hour later, happy birthday Wojciech, and it's Wojciech Chesney's birthday. It's just like two players that are gone from Arsenal however many years and like had minimal impact.
The
let's face
easiest
it.
job in the world as well.
Yeah.
It is so straightforward.
You've a very uncritical audience as well who will lap up
Oh
anything.
my god! All they want is
Defend
that.
it.
Yes. The more inane, the better, it seems.
Yeah.
Who would you say got more likes, Fabianski or Chesney?
Chesney, I
Chesney.
reckon.
No, Fabianski 15.6 thousand, Chesney 11.9.
Okay. We're getting off track here.
That's the point of the whole slot. But do you know what it reminded me as well, Joe, was a little bit of the end of the EFL Cup final. People remember the video there where there was a fan on the stairs under where the presentation area was, and a whole lot of players walked by.
At the Man United team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And next thing, Casemiro stops and gives a hug and kind of has a bit of a chat. And then I think Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford directly after him copy his behaviour as he
Yeah.
does it. So the first 6 or 7 players down just kind of walk past.
Yeah.
But once Casemiro stops, everyone follows suit.
Yeah.
I wonder if one of the Arsenal players had actually kind of stopped for a minute, maybe, had a little bit of a chat, had a smile, maybe a hug with the girl in question. I reckon more of them would have followed the behaviour.
That's an interesting point, yeah.
But all in all, I don't think I'm with Mick somewhat here. I don't think it's that big a deal. They did sign her shirt as they were going by. They didn't snub the girl as they were going past. It did feel cold though
I
compared
don't
to.
know. I think it's fairly.
It's kind of bad until you realise that someone's filming it from the get go, though.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, it's not like this is just a nice organic moment.
Sure.
They're aware they're doing something with it. You'd think then they could go, at some point someone was, well, none of these guys are looking at her. Could just one or two of you just like,
Knowledge she's a person.
pat in the head, something.
I thought it didn't speak well of them. And I think I would take Will's point. I think if one of them had engaged with her and pat on the head and a smile, the others just in an automatic, robotic way would have imitated that. This is what we do. Because sometimes former players can look a little bit bitter when they talk about the modern day player as being robotic and not able to think for themselves or act for themselves. And I thought that video spoke to that, actually.
How many 23-year-old kids, whatever, 23-year-old guys, would you know that would be comfortable having interactions with a 10-year-old girl?
Accept that too.
Like there is a little bit of that in it. Like it's it's almost the most awkward age you are for that.
They came
sort of
across
thing.
as kids themselves.
Yeah.
It was like
They are,
teenagers.
like, you know?
They did come across as teenagers, not sure how to behave.
Yeah.
I give you that. I suspect if Arteta, a man in his 40s,
Exactly.
was-
Just have that little
was
bit
there,
of experience
he
and
would have known.
confidence and
To be
comfortable.
fair, there is that too. There is that too.
There was a lovely video in the week. You know those when outside Carrington where all the United cars drive in. I don't know what day of the week it was, but there was one with Ten Hag, funnily enough, with a young kind of fan who came up and just like, I don't know who filmed that actually, but it was brilliant. It was just one of those really lovely exchanges where he kind of completely got it. I don't know if he has children himself, but he just understood, I suppose, what the brief was as such.
Yes.
All in all, it's a lot less cynical when it's, say, another fan maybe filming the interaction at the car as opposed to a social media team who are going around with their camera on their gimbal and making sure they get lots of shots which they can stick up on social media afterwards. Which are at this point, I'm really surprised they didn't look at it and go, you know, this one isn't great. Let's just let this one hit the cutting room floor and we'll use a different video. But it does, to an extent, speak of the massive gulf between the Premier League and, say, football on a smaller level as well. That if you went to a League of Ireland ground and players were coming out, I think they'd fairly happily stop and take a picture, sign an autograph for kids and have a chat with them.
Yeah.
But in a
Maybe
way, the Premier League is just
Maybe
kind
it's
of
a question of scale, you know. You just can't stop for every kid when you're a Premier League footballer.
But like when Joe Canning, who was the best at it, but there's plenty more. Like, you know, there's like most GA players even do it. Like, we'll stop and sign every hurley and every sliotar and every, you know, and they're getting such huge praise for that. But like, they're also like, I don't think they're having chats out there or conversations. They're doing it because they feel that it's their duty to, you know, to like the players want or the fans want a little bit of them, and you know they want to give that back, and it's like there's no badness in it, whatever, but they're not sitting there like having chats and asking them did they enjoy the match today or anything like that either. You know, it's a very different thing, but
It is a bit.
it's you know, I do feel that we, you know, I don't know.
You know
I
the
genuinely don't know what I'm saying.
inane blandness of the accounts that
Yeah.
irked you. What's the alternative though? Just don't put out anything.
No, I understand they have to, but I love the fact, you know, where they're really tested during an international window and they're watching all the games. And they're like, oh, well done, Palestri comes on for Uruguay.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you're really earning your money.
You should see the European Tour golf Twitter account. You know, like they will have Ryder Cup stuff 365 days a year and any tenuous link, you know.
Do you
Sorry, go on, go on.
I was just going to ask, do you like when they put out, like, you know, if like Manchester United have lost 3-1 at home to Fulham and they put up full time and it's like 1-3 and it's a picture of Fernandez with his fist in the air.
No, they read it better than that. They never see those. It has happened.
It's not far off, and some clubs maybe are worse at it than United.
It's so it is just it's so that's so funny when they're trying to sell. They have to sell bad news.
But you also have to, like, you can't just stop reporting it once you go 2-1 down either. Like, you do have to have some consistency to it.
I actually quite enjoy, particularly when GA accounts stop tweeting once their team go behind.
Oh my God.
It's so
always,
enthusiastic up to a point. And
I
then-
like that. It's like the Wild West there. There's no one, if you stop doing it, like you often go onto pages and you're like, I can't believe they've not updated the score here. It's
the
like, no, I
amount
completely
of
can't.
times I would check Clare GA score, say through the club in question, and it'd be like Instagram story, and I'd see the halftime score, and I know that the full time score not being there meant they lost, but I wouldn't know by how much.
And the old classic on Twitter is it would go up afterwards. Sorry, ran out of battery. Conveniently on the one day we lose.
Slightly unconnected, but connected in a way. Did you see the shot of Ryan Reynolds with Ben Foster after that Wrexham game that you were watching the other week?
No, I don't think I saw anything
It's
after the game.
it's this photo here where you see they're having this amazing they're having this amazing moment if you haven't seen it.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah,
it's Ryan Reynolds, like his hands on Foster's shoulders, and someone's managed to get a photo of it, and he's like, you know, he's staring him in the eye like only a Hollywood actor could. You know, I'd say, you know, US presidents and Ryan Reynolds make you feel like you're the only person in the room, you know, and he's like in awe. But then the full picture when it zooms out is there's a camera crew and a guy with a boom thing standing over them, and the whole thing is just Ryan Reynolds in character as Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
It's just like he's nothing real anymore.
But this is what I was actually going to talk about that Wrexham thing. We never actually spoke about it on the night, but I watched that Wrexham Notts County game, and it was an amazing atmosphere, and there is something to be said for the Wrexham fans getting this, like, after years in the, like, wilderness, because it was a full house, like, but they were there, and I was thinking to myself the whole way through, it was like, stop being a cynical idiot. This is a Netflix documentary, you know what I mean? It's all fake and it's all this. And
Disney
exactly
documentary.
what you're saying. Disney, sorry. But like, you're hitting yourself in the head, almost like not allowing yourself to enjoy it because you almost feel the need to not be sucked in by nonsense. But it's like, then I was like, there's another part of me that's just like, can I not just like enjoy it for what it is? It's kind of cool, even if it is just a story.
Yeah.
Even if it is just fake, there's something still. Again, for those Wrexham fans who went there who haven't had anything since they beat Arsenal in 1993, you know, that was like a packed house, a racehorse ground, beating their rivals in a thriller of a game, and it was something that was like, it's definitely the best the conference is ever going to be. You know, so there is upsides to it as well, even if it is all cynical and rubbish behind it all.
I think you keep your cynicism.
Yeah.
Hold on to it. It's not, I don't think it's to be celebrated.
I don't either. It brings me out.
I'm not saying celebrated, but I suppose enjoyed in the moment.
No.
Like, I was very cynical when they signed Ben Foster, because obviously he is a massive social media presence and a big
What a
podcast
ridiculous
himself.
twerk to it. Like, you know, it's all of a sudden, you know, you're bringing in Ben Foster, former England keeper,
is
former Man
happening?
United
Can I
keeper.
ask what's wrong with it though? Because there's investment that comes in out of nowhere in all the other
think,
leagues and everywhere else as well.
It's just like we're losing all authenticity in like across our lives because we're recording everything.
Yeah,
Everyone's just behaving.
I would
in
agree with that.
Weird ways. And
Totally.
you know, so it's an extension of that, but it's that's at a kind of very visible big level, but like right down to on the ground, there's just something weird happening in the last 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's even like the LeBron point that got him the record, when there's only one guy, the CEO of Nike, who's sitting there without a camera phone.
Oh yeah,
And that's because he has a photographer beside him taking the moment anyway.
That was the great thing about that, is that everyone was like, look at the one guy who's taking it in, and then it turned out he'd hired like a camera crew to film him watching it, so even he's not really in the moment. I thought we're doomed.
I do feel that, like, if you go to a gig or something, or even a match now, it's like, it's like, are you seeing any of this? And are you ever even going to watch these videos back?
It's funny you say
Because
that.
I've
I,
millions of videos of my kids that I never even watch because I've millions of them.
I know.
Do you know?
I was at the 100 metres in 2012 and I recorded it. And I made it, like I held it up to record it, but you can't not but glance down just to make sure you are recording it. And obviously it doesn't go on for very long, less than 10 seconds. And
It's the shortest race ever, in fact. isn't it?
I did manage to watch it, but a good 30-40% of my attention was on moving my hand and filming it and looking up, and I wouldn't say I've ever watched that video since.
No.
Were you filming it for social or just to have it as a memory?
Memory.
It was barely social then, really, was there? Not in the same way.
I'm sure you could have found it on YouTube.
I don't even think I was on then, on Twitter. I can't remember. But no, it was like, you know, it's such a blue ribboned iconic event. I thought, oh, this would be a great thing to have. But
Yeah.
It's bleak. I find it bleak now when you're at an event and you do see it happening. You do kind of feel out of touch with the people around you.
yeah,
There's no impetus in me to do that. And
I just think you have to resist.
And it's just, you do, it kind of feels like people aren't taking it as seriously as something, you know, to that effect. And you feel quite snobbish and isolated with it, but it isn't really any.
No,
I appreciate when someone gets good footage. Like last year, Munster final, Tony Kelly hits the sideline cut. It was a much better camera angle from the stand as opposed to what the TV got. But for the best part, the 4K cameras that are there and the professional teams are going to get much better footage than you ever get.
It's just to show you were there, isn't it? It's like right, I'm going to Bruce Springsteen in a couple of weeks in the RDS, right? And it was like, even as I've seen him for 20 years now, you know, every time you see, it's more and more like you don't even want to be singing at the gig anymore because you'll just be on someone's phone sounding like a out of tune moron. Do you know, like constantly, it just feels like everything is just on display and everything is for the act of what's going to be on my phone rather than just being in the moment and in what is like an amazing immersive experience, and it's becoming less and less so every time.
and
I can understand why some artists are basically having you have
Tommy
to give your
Tiernan-
phone over before you go in.
Tiernan did that a couple of weeks ago, actually. But then back to that authenticity point. All of our behaviour then is so performative that I just don't even know what's real anymore.
Yeah.
At those concerts, are you really having this good a time, or are you just making sure that you're?
But I'm
being
almost the
seen to
opposite.
have-
I'm almost like, you know, it's like almost like I'm not putting myself out there and just
yeah,
like
sure,
letting
yeah,
myself
yeah.
have a good time. But yeah, 100% it works the other way as
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
But I'm not.
grim, isn't it?
I'm not above having the instinct. Sometimes if I'm at something, I think to myself, oh, I want to get a photo, and actually maybe I want to put this on my social media, and I have to fight that instinct. So I understand. I'm not there going, I can't even relate to these people with their camera phones. I understand that instinct or that inclination to capture it, and it's like, yeah. And now I've never wanted to take a picture of my food, but again,
You just eating in the wrong restaurants, or
but when it arrives and you're having a great time, I do understand people going,
Yeah.
oh, you know.
No, but
well,
do you know what? Like you'll see it now. You are seeing it, I'm sure. But like your kids is an interesting one because you want to you want to document it. You want to remember them when they're like at different ages and all that. But you become a thing where you're, instead of documenting it so that you see that bit in your memories, you're documenting everything and you were experiencing nothing. And it's such an important thing. It's like, you know, the early walking and stuff like that. And this is like, oh, she's after doing it and I don't have the phone out. You know what I mean? It's like, well, maybe enjoy the fact that she's just taken the few steps, you know, and that this is a big moment, and you have a thing called a memory.
Yeah.
That I feel is like we're all losing as well in a way, because we're relying on the documentary evidence all the time.
Like, wouldn't it be interesting if it turned out one of those Arsenal players who is sick of like the social media team following him around at all times and documenting everything, not to mention the Amazon documentary, was like, you put the phone away, so can I just talk to the girl without you in my face? Who knows, maybe one of them was like, if I talk to her, it's going to be a big thing, some video in it. They might be saying, wait until you go away and then I'll talk to her in private. That could be part of their thinking as well. Like, they must resent cameras on them at all times.
Yeah.
Especially when they've no need for it.
Yeah.
It doesn't benefit them in any great way at all.
Not really.
There's such a cynicism that's so built in us, even on stuff like that. So, say like when Joe Biden was in Ballina, there was like 2 or 3 moments where they were very much this wasn't for the cameras, this was on its own, say at the hospice, or when he met that priest who gave his brother or his son, the last rites, right? But the other part of me is listening to that and going, how come I know about this?
Yeah.
You know, why is this being reported everywhere and so on, if it was such a private and non-political and everything moment? I don't know which one of them is true. I'd like to think it was that it was this private moment that was nothing to do with publicity. But I can't help that voice in my head that's thinking, why do I know about it? It's the same with everything. Anything that's done privately, like, it's almost like nobody can win anymore because we have this inbuilt cynicism in us.
Anyway, that was the
What are we
Arsenal
talking
video.
about?
Yeah, we're just we are tangenting a touch too much there, perhaps. But that was the Arsenal video. More your emails to a slight tangent at offtheball.com. I don't know what you're all interested in. There's one on celebrations, which doesn't need much teasing out. It's from David in Melbourne, in Australia.
Thanks.
Long time listener, first time emailer. Not sure if this has been discussed previously. I think it has, actually. That's why we weren't too keen on it. But recently I found myself getting quite annoyed when footballers celebrate a goal by sliding on their knees. We're all familiar with Ole Gunnar after the Champions League. Numerous other footballers, Lukaku, Eden Hazard, to name a few, have stopped doing the knee slide as their celebration due to the potential injury this could cause.
When's Eden Hazard last scored a goal?
When's Eden Hazard last played?
All right, lads, leave him alone. If somebody like Erling Haaland, who himself loves a good knee slide, injured himself in this way, Pep would go ballistic. My question here is, given that there is even the slightest chance you could do yourself harm by celebrating this way, should clubs look to ban such celebrations from their players? Keep up the great work. Huge fan of the show. David, Melbourne, Australia.
Wow.
Good luck telling Erling Haaland not to do a knee slide.
I would think it's dangerous though as well. I think Solskjaer did injure himself in that knee slide celebration famously. Did cause himself knee trouble as a result. Manuel Neuer skiing didn't go well earlier in the season as well. Broken leg.
Yeah.
I always liked Rio Ferdinand injuring himself watching TV. Canizares was another one who missed the World Cup because he dropped the bottle of aftershave in his foot.
Yeah.
Like a very rich man. I've no idea why he put his foot out to try and stop a bottle of
That's
aftershave.
instinct.
It's
I
instinct.
can't
It's
help
like the
it,
celebration. It's instinct.
Yeah, bang. And Rio, I think, did he pull a muscle trying to reach for the remote on one of his days off? Yeah.
That rings a bell, but I also feel like Robbie Keane might have done the same thing one time.
Together, I think they were at Leeds together at the time.
And they both did it at the same time.
Not sure if they both did it. I think Robbie Keane might have been there.
Might have been there.
Roy Parrott got injured earlier this year doing
think
the
that
celebration
crossed
as well. It
over.
wasn't a
I'm
knee
almost
slide, but
Did
he
he?
got
Well,
injured
yeah.
celebrating his first goal.
Well, I
for
think the
Preston.
danger when you do the knee slide is your ligaments and tendons are slightly stretched, and then it's someone piles in on top of you, a la Solskjaer.
Oh, it's not getting like caught in the bad
Just
ground.
you're in a position where you don't want to be further extended, perhaps.
Yeah. Celebration of choice as a youth for us. It was a few years after Ronnie Whelan's knee slide goal celebration against the USSR.
Do you know what I think is a pity has died out, and it was safe, was the Klinsman.
Yeah,
That was great
it
fun.
was a great one.
On a wet
We
day
wanted a
especially.
really wet day, like an almost waterlogged pitch where you could go halfway down the...
Ah, come on, the Klinsman. What are you laughing at?
I always found it quite hard to do. You really have to propel yourself into it to get any sort of length to it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, the mistake would be to jump too high, and then
Yes,
you just
okay, yeah.
wind yourself then.
Oh, here we go. Young Wolves striker Robbie Keane ruptured his knee cartilage in October last year after stretching to pick up his TV remote control.
Wow.
That was the 25th of July 1999.
Leeds manager David O'Leary said, this is about Rio, he, quote, had his foot up on a coffee table and strained a tendon behind his knee when he was reaching for the remote.
I can see how that would happen.
Isn't it funny the things you do though when you're like so lazy and you're reaching
Get up
for
and get the remote, yeah.
But none of us do. Like we all try and like squeeze it between our toes, even though it's impossible.
Kick the table, just get it to move back a bit.
Can you imagine if that injury happened to Evan Ferguson now? Our reaction to it. I'm thinking back to the time, like if that was if he injured his leg picking up a TV remote, like with all that's gone wrong for Stephen Kenny already.
Yeah.
My God.
Think pieces about why is he watching TV
Oh, there would be think pieces.
when he should be asleep.
Why doesn't he have voice control?
Ali from West Cork was in touch. Who she signs off. Cheers for all the great radio. So, what an opener from Ali. Dear Co and Joe, you guys get first billing.
Ooh.
LTFT. Thank you very much, Ali. I listened to Lydia Hislop yesterday on the show about the melee at Aintree. She says, and Ali says several times in brackets, that 90,000 horses race every year and that 99.8% are totally fine. Horses have a lifespan of up to 30 years. If I thought all 90,000 of this year's racing horses would live out the rest of their lives in the same manner as their first 6 years, that would be one thing. But we know only the elite get that opportunity. You guys did a terrific piece on your Sunday paper review a couple of months ago about would-be or ex-racing thoroughbreds left in the most deplorable, most neglectful circumstances in our own country, and therefore we know that her stats completely ignore this. Because, and I know there is a much wider debate to be had about all animal rights, but just in the context of horse racing, because the entire lives of these horses is surely the central part of the story that has been most overlooked in all horse racing discussions. No? Question mark. I think that's an excellent email. Ali, I have to say I had the same thoughts myself, and I felt that the Lydia Hislop piece was very favourable towards horse racing. That was my instinct after doing it, that Lydia, as she's entitled to do, gave a very, not defensive, but I would say an argument in favour of horse racing, as opposed to, I would have said we were aiming for that piece to be a bit more down the middle and almost a helicopter view of how much trouble is racing in, and you know, how significant is the anti-racing lobby going to be for this sport in the coming decades, and where, you know, will we have racing in 100 years? That was the kind of piece we envisaged. But I thought, and look, Lydia is a brilliant journalist, and it was great to have her on. But my instinct afterwards was, I thought, oh, the horse racing community will like that interview. Was my sense, and I had the same thought about the 90,000, and she said 99.8% are totally, you know, will have a great experience of the 90,000 horses that race every year, and it seemed like a very exact figure, and I didn't have one to counter it, so I said, okay, well, I'll take you at your word on that. But I do have the same concerns as you, Ali, about the horses that stop serving a purpose, i.e. stop being successful, or don't make it to begin with. The treatment of those horses, given the economics of having to look after them, I think is a big problem for the racing community. And to be fair to Lydia, she did acknowledge that issue and that more could be done. And you know, I asked her at one point, well, how many horses get a great second life when they stop racing? And she acknowledged that more needs to be done in that area. So I think we can read plenty into that. So where is horse racing, do we think? Not so much on the back of the protest. The protest happens, media talk about it for a day or two, and on we go. But just the point Lydia made, I suppose, about a more urban population who look at racing and don't see horses as work animals being put to work. They see animals being forced into a sport where they quite often die, or else worse, they're neglected for years and years and years if they don't cut the mustard. Where do we think racing is in terms of its existence over the next 50 to 60 to 70 years?
I think Ali's point is a very good one, because the focus generally around the treatment of horses focuses on the period of their career. And pretty much all of the, I would say, concerns that have been raised in the last year or so about the treatment of horses, about the possible doping of horses along the way that we've been reading about, particularly from Irish dispatches over the last 6 to 8 months, I would say in particular, have all been based around a horse in racing condition. as opposed to talking about what happens to a horse afterwards. We will always see the picture that goes up from a yard that says the horse is now going off to stud to enjoy the rest of their life and their well-earned break and whatever else. But there obviously are thousands of horses, purely down to the numbers that Lydia has just given you, that are not going to be successful or may well be sold on and then don't become a racehorse or get injured along the way. And I think for those who are concerned about horse racing, that's an obvious, I would say, grey area that's probably not looked at a lot, because we will focus on the 7 or 8 years that a racehorse is out in the middle of their career as opposed to that. It's a fair point. It's not something I'd actually thought about that.
So what does happen? People might not have the answer, but what generally does happen to, like, say, someone that doesn't go to stud, like a national hunt horse that reaches retirement age? I know if you're Hurricane Fly or whatever, you're kept in the stables and, you know, you're probably ridden out and you're brought to Cheltenham, you know, with a jumper on you and kind of paraded to the crowd every 5 years or whatever, and that's lovely. But surely that only happens to the legends. Like, surely there isn't room in the training stables for, like, every random horse that used to ride, or, you know, and that was like winning races at Utoxeter.
I think it's a grisly end in a lot of cases.
Do you think they're just put down because they've outlived their use?
We've seen it in exposes.
Yeah.
RTE had a documentary and it just had footage of horses being shot dead.
The cost of them, like.
Yeah.
I suspect horse racing will be grand, so long as there's people betting on it.
Idea.
As long as people
As
are
long as
betting.
people are betting on it, as long as there's cause for that, people keep going.
Because it's funny, after the piece we were chatting in the office and I was saying, was that a bit too favourable to the racing industry? And we were chatting and you said, I think you said racing, if racing's in trouble, it's not because of animal rights concerns, it's just because of a lack of interest on the part of owners.
Maybe it scales down, you know, but there's always going to be people to gamble on it, because it's just so. I mean, it's literally been the case for millennia in one form or another. So I don't think it's going to be. I don't think that's going anywhere.
Yeah, you're looking at a time, Joe, where you've got thousands of people who are employed in the horse racing industry. Add onto that the multi-million pound euro industry that is gambling, and the fact that TV companies are showing racing 7 days a week, pretty much most of the day.
Yeah,
it's not like, I can't imagine it being banned or disappearing in any way.
I mean, what was it you said earlier that made me laugh? You're like, it's not cockfighting, or it's not
badger baiting.
It's not badger baiting either. You know, like,
I was about to say in defence of horse racing, because we're talking about this like, is it? Oh, sure, there'll always be a bad economy that'll keep it going, and that'll be just, you know, real politics, and it's like there's a lot to be argued that there isn't there needs to be things that are cleaned up and sorted out, but there isn't like something inherently evil or wrong with horse racing, I don't think, anyway, and I certainly don't think that's a given. You know, it's a debate, like, you know, and I have to say that some of what Lydia said, and a lot of texters said the same thing last night, really rang true with me, is like, what is the meaning for these horses? What is their existence if they're not racing?
I just think
because they're not out running in the meadows, they're
just not bred.
Yeah,
they just. I suppose the animal rights people, or what are they called? Animal rising people. They're saying, well, they're better off not existing, because they're, you know, in a lot of cases subject
when they're
to
neglected. That's
neglect.
The case, but I'm not sure that how many. I would like to know more about how much of a problem like the neglect of horses is. You know what I mean? If it is systematic and everywhere, then obviously there's a much bigger issue. If it's bad actors here and there, and like it's something that can be cleaned up with some political will that is absolutely needed. Don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting that they should be given free rein.
Yeah.
I wonder what the end goal is as well, lads, because obviously, you know, some of the press releases that we get in Sunday morning, because I was reading them just on the back of Aintree because of the protests, is actually to ban horse racing outright, as opposed to, say, maybe small incremental changes being made. And like in the case of Aintree with the Grand National, they've dropped down some of the fences, they've shortened the course, they have deliberately tried to kind of move it towards a slightly safer course for the horses. But part of probably what makes it interesting and entertaining as a steeplechase is that it is an incredibly difficult test for the horse. So where do you take that away from, you know, the world's most famous race to try and make it safer?
Yeah, it's the selling
You could
point
potentially destroy the race as well. I don't know what the actual end point is, or what's seen as an acceptable move here.
Yeah. Just think there are. I take your point. There'll always be able to gamble and it'll be fine. But then there definitely is, even in the last 20, 30 years, such a shift in attitudes to animals that even Lydia's point about whether or not you view the horse as a pet or a working animal. I feel those attitudes are shifting away from, I feel good about it being a working animal, and if it dies, it dies. We're sad it's dying, but like that's the nature of the work. I don't know if that's cutting it increasingly with people.
I mean, I don't know. I don't like it. To my eye, horse racing's certainly maybe it's around the bigger days or the bigger events in the calendar seems to be as big, if not bigger than ever. I don't know about that. You know, that's not a true reflection. I don't know the day-to-day racing. And as someone kind of made a point, I don't know where it was, in a text or a comment in or somewhere, who was talking about it. So it was the Monday to Wednesday horses,
Right.
which kind of makes sense, I suppose, implicitly what they mean. But I have no idea, because there are so many horses racing every day of the week in the most wherever offshoot places that we will never cross our minds whatsoever. And I suppose you would wonder what happens then. We
had been talking before actually the protest about doing a panel. Dan McDonald, we were going to get in as a former owner, and a few others, just to do a round table on where is racing, because there just is this sense of the lobby in the UK being especially loud, and I suspect it'll increase here over time. So we might do that.
I think your question is where are we in 60, 70, 80, 100 years even, is like, I don't think it's as clear cut as there'll always be gambling, there'll always racing, because these things do change over time. And, you know, I feel like we're rapidly going through history at the moment, you know, in terms of how things change.
Boxing and rugby could be in trouble in 100 years.
Absolutely. But think about, like, when in the 1980s and 90s, like, there was a lot of debate about fox hunting.
Yeah.
Like, it was still on that, like, argument side of things. But, you know, you don't hear much about it at all anymore. Like, it's.
Do you not think those sports will evolve, though, as opposed to disappearing? Like, even racing is trying to evolve. You look at the whip ban at the moment.
I don't know. I heard through the grapevine, remember there was the greyhound documentary about the 6,000 greyhounds killed every year, and there was be careful enough here. There were people in the horse racing fraternity who came out publicly to defend greyhound racing, and I know through the grapevine they were asked, why did you come out so vociferously? And the line was, well, if they come after greyhound racing successfully,
could be in trouble.
Who do you think they're coming after next? So I think there is this existential nervousness within the sport that they are under attack, rightly or wrongly. There's a text in. We'll park that, but let's come back to it. I did want to read out Ali's email. Thought it was a very good one. Joe and Co. There's a text in. I went to one of the worst and most disappointing gigs I've ever been to recently. Social media would tell me it was one of the greatest of all time. Grim. Well, there is that aspect, isn't there?
Absolutely.
You're not going to be making videos for social media to say that the band were crap.
Because like most things.
Disappointing night here at the O3 Arena.
But would you not think most things you go to are like, yeah, it's grand.
Yeah.
But you couldn't tweet that.
No.
You couldn't say it's grand, like.
Instagram versus reality, Joseph.
What about just not tweeting or not putting it up on Instagram?
Sure, like, did it happen?
And then just wait until you have that religious experience.
Because we're all addicted to the dopamine. I got to get something out there today, you know.
Some of us are as bad as anyone.
Funny. I was going to ask if you ever had this. I find on a Friday or Saturday now, I am like, I miss the little buzz of doing broadcasting. Chemically.
Okay.
Just a little bit of a dip.
Do you know, I don't have the same thing of doing broadcasting, but I definitely feel by a Friday I'm looking forward to Monday in terms of I really love the energy of coming in on a Monday when there's a whole new thing to be exploring again.
Yeah.
That Friday, you love the weekend, but there's definitely a thing with that where you're like, I can't wait, we're getting stuck into that again and see what's happening.
Just start thinking I need to like go to the gym or something on my day off is Friday after the week, just to get a hit of something. Because there's obviously some chemicals involved here in this that without them I'm just a little bit.
I'm desperately unhappy with that.
This is where you set up another podcast just for the days.
I might. I'm like, can I broadcast 7 days a week?
I don't even recognise this, whatever Joe said.
Do you not? No. You see, I've my.
Sometimes I want to get back to work, but I never think of it as like, I'd
say my body has become accustomed to 5 days a week, and on during Six Nations, throw in another 2 of adrenaline. I guess
I understand it. Yeah.
I find when I have a few days off,
Lights
it's weird.
on.
Weird. Not every week, but a bit weird. Say if you're off for a week, where you're used to doing things like. Usually you and I are kind of 5 to 6 days a week kind of guys.
Yeah.
And
hard working types.
Yeah.
Get out of bed early.
And as a result, it does feel strange when you're not on. I think when I was off for Christmas, I ended up watching A Slight Tangent on the Tuesday I was off. It's a bit weird. I should have been watching the show.
I think Will was saying, who's taking my place here?
Yeah,
Colin Buig.
Who's this hot take Buig?
Yeah.
Buig was very entertaining in fairness.
Was he? Will we have him back? I don't know. Whew. I'm only saying that because I know he listens.
Will's off next week, so
Yeah, there you
Special
go.
guest next
Maybe
week.
it could be a spot next week. I'll do an AM slot for them in
Could
return.
raffle it off.
I like it.
Like,
Or auction it.
auction it amongst the listeners.
one of our emailers maybe.
That would be amazing.
One of our FTLTs.
Could you imagine? Here's Jim from Galway or John from West Cork.
I think we
Just
get
here for the night.
the guy who Arthur yawned during.
No, I'm vetoing that. He's not coming in.
He should come in, and then you can yawn in the man's face.
Coming nowhere near us.
He gives me 2 tickets to his play. I'll let him have my slot next week.
There was apologies, by the way. There was a lengthy email from Fergan Cork in defence of Trent Alexander-Arnold, which we'll come to again at some stage. Midfield maestro. Now Trent Alexander-Arnold.
I was sure you were going to make a joke that he does more defending than Trent does himself.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. No, it was a convincing email though, so we'll come to it at some stage. Any final thoughts on the week's A Slight Tangent?
It feels like it's come to an end.
Review of the time.
Did you think it was
Hang on
good?
time actually here, Joe.
That's a bad sign if we're not
Going
going
to give
over.
out the Champions League scores before we go.
Yeah, okay.
It's bad news for Napoli.
Yeah, they're in big trouble.
1-0 down, 2-0 on aggregate.
Yeah.
AC Milan have scored in Naples, so that is very bad news. Chelsea are still 0-0 in the night at half time, so 2-0 on aggregate. So, a Chelsea goal early in the second half.
You just want that to happen.
Mightn't be horrific. Gents, thank you very much.